Okay. Greetings, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you, and we're here today to speak to everyone about the Safe2Say program and how it's impacted students, their schools, and communities during the 2024-2025 school year. As many of you already know, Safe2Say is an anonymous reporting system aimed at students to express concerns in their schools and communities. You will hear today how often the program is used, what happens when tips are received, and the most common types of reports we receive from students and other tipsters. You will also hear how this program specifically supports the Carlisle School District. We are fortunate to have Senator Greg Rothman here with us today, who will offer some comments as well. And without the continued support of the legislature in the form of legislation and continued funding, this program would not be thriving. Thank you, Greg. The Safe2Say Something program embodies my priority to protect some of the most vulnerable residents amongst us, to include our children. Yesterday, we celebrated Father's Day, and as a dad, there is nothing more important to me than keeping my child safe. And I feel the same weight and responsibility as your Attorney General. I know that parents, teachers, administrators, and other school staff members throughout the Commonwealth feel the exact same way about the kids in their homes, neighborhoods, and classrooms. Students today are dealing with a lot. In addition to their schoolwork, they're faced with a whole different landscape that many of us did not have to deal with when we were kids. And that includes the digital world, social media, artificial intelligence, and online gaming. When I was a kid, if I was having an issue with someone at school, whatever was going on could be left at school. That's not the case today. The pressure at school stays with the students 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the reason for that is cell phones, social media, and again, I mentioned online gaming. These forms of communication and entertainment not only connect our children to a world of information and to their peers, but it also opens them up to a number of dangers from people that are trying to exploit them, on top of whatever stressors they are already facing as children and at school. These are very challenging times for students. They need our support, and they need healthy ways to cope with the stressors that they deal with today. It is imperative that we reach kids in their language and in their preferred arenas of communication. And that is where the Safe2Say program really thrives. Many of our tips come in via the app on mobile services. We all know the days of picking up a telephone and dialing are fading, especially with our younger generations. So that is why this program is designed to interact with kids in spaces in which they feel comfortable. These tips often involve sensitive topics that tipsters might be nervous or anxious to speak about. The platform is anonymous. To maintain that assurance of anonymity for users, we will not be speaking about specific tips today. Such disclosure of information is actually prohibited by law in order to protect our students and to encourage them to use this tool. For the 2024-25 school year, more than 32,000 tips were submitted to the Safe2Say program. Tips are submitted primarily through the app and text messages, but also through phone calls. Since the program launched in 2019, there have been more than 185,000 tips submitted. This school year, the most common subject matters in the tips were bullying, cyberbullying, suicide ideation, and drug distribution. I note that we saw an increase this year with tips about threats against schools and individuals, and tips regarding weapons. That tells me this program is vital and it is a trusted resource for students. I will have Special Agent Brittany Klein, who is the director of the program, talk about what happens with the tips once they are received. But essentially, my office is the receiver of the tips. Our intake team engages with the tipster, who remains anonymous, and that's very, very important to understand that the tipster does remain anonymous, to gather as much information as possible before the tip is passed along to the appropriate school or law enforcement agency. The Office of Attorney General does not take investigative action on the tips unless we have reason to believe it is a deliberately false tip or a hoax. And Brittany will speak a little more about that as well. Misuse of this program represents a very small percentage of overall tips received. While false tips are a resource drain, we do not feel that they have resulted in harm or neglect of any tipsters or a legitimate tip. In other words, no one is hanging on hold while we chase down a false lead. The numbers, quality of tips, and interactions with school districts show us that this program is improving every year. This program makes kids, their families, and schools and communities safer. And here's why I say that. In schools that have received and deployed extensive training, we are receiving tips that are more complete and more actionable. Tipsters also stay engaged with our intake analysts as they know what to expect in the process. We've also noticed after in-person trainings at schools an influx of tips from students who express that they haven't felt totally comfortable speaking about their concerns through other methods. All that said, we feel strongly that this program makes kids, their families, and communities safer. And this program has saved lives. We have seen intervention by school and police and recovery of weapons regarding a tip of alleged threats of violence. We can never say for sure what would have happened in these scenarios, and you never want to assume the worst, but that is how law enforcement responds to such tips. I also think it is critical to applaud the students who have had the courage to make contact with the Safe2Say platform, for trusting that their tip could make the difference in someone's life and could protect their fellow students. And so to those kids out there that took the step to make those calls, I thank you. That courage needs to be celebrated in this day and age. To our students, if you see something that concerns you about your safety or the safety or well-being of your school or another student, then say something. Help is available. I applaud our partners across the Commonwealth for embracing the program and training their students and staff on the proper use of this program. The Carlisle School District has fully embraced this program, and they serve as an example of how we want to see Safe2Say help students and their communities. I thank them for hosting us here today. Mike Black, Director of Secondary Operations, will speak about how this program has impacted the Carlisle community in a moment. I will close my comments by asking parents to speak with their kids about this program. Perhaps they've seen it advertised, or they read a news story, or watched coverage, or saw this press conference. But have a conversation. These conversations are ones worth having, and again, this conversation could give a child the information they need to be able to impact the safety of their schools and the safety of their friends and classmates. As parents and educators, we would like to think that our children and our students are sharing everything with us. But we are all not that naive to believe that that's the reality. And that is where this program can fill that gap. A student might not want to talk face-to-face about a classmate who is making comments or posting on social media, things that are frightening or alarming. We think that they are way more likely to utilize a confidential app like this to share that information. That is essentially the special sauce of this program. It offers students a safe and anonymous way to speak freely. And it would not be this successful without the collaboration of everyone here today and at the schools and the communities all throughout the Commonwealth. My office administers this program, but really, for it to thrive in your school and community, we need the superintendents, the principals, the police chiefs, municipal government leaders, and parents to do the work on the ground, and of course we need the students to use it. And I would be remiss if I did not give special recognition to all of the county 911 centers across the Commonwealth, as well as the state police communications operations. They are all key collaborators in this process. Every single school year, we are seeing more and more collaboration and community commitment to this program, and we will keep working to expand those relationships and to make this network even stronger. Some of you may have heard me say this before, but I really am a firm believer that if our communities aren't safe, nothing else matters. And the best solution for any issue or problem is to do the front end work to make sure that we can prevent something terrible from happening before it happens. And Safe2Say checks off all those boxes and is an important tool to make sure that we can do that. Thank you everyone for being here today to learn more about this program, and to those that are already engaged in this program, I applaud you. Let's keep doing the vital work to keep our schools and our children and our community safe. I would now like to invite Safe2Say Program Director Brittany Klein to the podium. Brittany, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General Sunday. That is a great message for the program, and I just want to hit on a couple things regarding the training and the intake process for our tips. This year, we have trained over 520,000 students on the Safe2Say program. We offer a variety of training models for our schools to make sure that the training is easy for them to release to all of their students. This year in Safe2Say, we actually saw an increase of training requests from our school districts having actual in-person trainings, which includes some of our Safe2Say staff who actually go out to schools and train them. For the intake process of tips, once the schools are trained, we do see an uptick in tips that come in from those school districts. As far as the intake, a tipster will provide us the information. We are staffed by a team of analysts who are available 24/7, 365 to intake the information that is provided from our tipsters. The tipsters are anonymous to us unless they choose to provide their information, at which point we will make sure that they do want to remain anonymous, or if they would like their information passed along, we will confirm that with them in a dialogue as well. It is a two-way dialogue with our tipsters. It is critical to remind our students that we will engage and ask more questions of the tipsters to get as much information on those tips as we can. Gathering that information is key for us to determine exactly how we process that tip. It will always go to the school district because it is a process in working with our schools to determine what's the next level where this tip goes, if law enforcement needs to be involved, or if there's another resource that we can get involved, especially with students who are struggling with any type of mental health crisis. After all that information is gathered, we send those tips out to those resources and those law enforcement agencies in order to get the best response for that specific tip once the information is completely gathered. It is really a team effort between our school districts, our county 911 centers, and our law enforcement to handle these tips, and we appreciate that team effort. It takes everybody to get all that information and get that tip moving to the right place as quickly as possible. Some of these tips are processed within seconds. Some may take a little longer depending on the information that we need to gather, and some may be putting pieces of the puzzle together between our analysts, the tipsters' information, and our school districts. I'd like to touch on misuse of tips. As Attorney General Sunday commented, it is draining. It's a draining resource when we do get tips that are false or they are a prank. We try our best in Safe2Say to immediately triage those tips as false or deliberate abuse of the systems. However, we don't always know that until we go into the next level of an investigation into that information. Tips that sometimes appear to be submitted in good faith that are later determined to be prank tips are investigated either through local law enforcement or by our office, in which we will have a special agent actually look into the source of that tip and identify the tipster, in which there could be consequences for the submission of that information. I think it is very important for our students to know that misuse of the system will be handled and is not tolerated. The last piece of information that I'd like to provide is in regards to going into the summer. We've now hit the end of the school year and we are going into the summer, and I offer the reminder that we are available 24/7, 365. So we are available during the summer months for our students to provide tips. We do see an overall decrease in the volume of tips. However, students still use the program over the summer. I will say that the tips that come in over the summer, we do actually see an increase of life safety, and that's because most of the tips are something that is very critical that needs a response either from local law enforcement or additional resources. I think I've hit everything that I wanted to say, so now I will turn it over to Dr. Black.
Hello, everyone. Attorney General Sunday, thank you. Brittany with Safe2Say, thank you. We appreciate the collaboration it's provided the Carlisle Area School District. Unfortunately, our district superintendent is not able to be with us today, but I do know she is Dr. Colleen Friend. She is a huge proponent of this program, and she works with the tips that come into our district on the ground just as much as our administrators and our school police works with these tips on the ground. We talked about training. At Carlisle, we appreciate how our students and adults utilize Safe2Say. We speak with our students annually, mostly secondary students, about the Safe2Say app and utilizing the system when needed. We also highlight with our students that this program helps to solve problems, provide guidance, or provide information about a particular situation, and it should never be used as a game or a joke. How has Safe2Say benefited the Carlisle Area School District? The greatest benefit this system provides is the opportunity for us to be aware. Regardless of how big or how little the situation may be, we appreciate the students and adults who provide us with the needed information. Awareness is a huge piece of safety. There may not be one particular incident or item to highlight, but one may ask, how does Safe2Say make our school community safer and more informed? Over the years, we have worked through many different situations based on Safe2Say tips. The system provides instant access to communication with administrators, our school police, local law enforcement, and at times law enforcement on a larger scale. Whether it's 2:30 p.m. or 1:30 a.m., when the information is received and it heightens the alarm meter, the collaboration begins. The group works to ensure the matter is investigated or resolved as quickly as possible. The communication is seamless and beneficial, and this only leads to the safety and security of our students. So on behalf of the Carlisle Area School District, the Attorney General's Office, and Safe2Say, thank you for your involvement, and thank you for what you do for the students.
Before I call up Senator Rothman, I just want to take a minute to thank you for all the work and support the legislature has given to the Safe2Say program. And that's, in the form of legislation, in the form of funding. And if it wasn't for that type of collaborative work that's done, things like this wouldn't exist. And so thank you for being supportive to you and all your colleagues. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, General Sunday, and the collaboration you're doing with all law enforcement across the state is commendable, and you're doing a great job as Attorney General. Happy Father's Day also to all of you. The role as a father, and I have 5 children, is to make sure we protect our children. We cannot expect the government to do all that too. We have to work together as a community. And so this Safe2Say program, we're teaching our students through this program that you have a responsibility to help to police and to help keep the community safe. And a lot of times these are tips that are crying out for help, and we should be offering those help to those in many cases someone who's suffering from mental health or other issues that it's a cry for help too. So we have an outstanding superintendent in Carlisle School District. We have a great chief of police in the borough, and working together as a government of, for, and by the people, and having community involvement is how that we're going to succeed. So I voted for this legislation in the House and certainly support its continuation, its funding. These issues are too big to be solved by any one person or one department or one elected official. We have to work together. So Carlisle has a rich history, a great school district where the children are engaged, and so I'm glad that we're continuing that on, and glad that Carlisle is highlighting this great program. So I thank the teachers and the administrators. And I think it's important to note, as has a couple speakers have all touched upon, that in Cumberland County, we have an outstanding 911 center that is full of people who are dedicated and committed to making sure that once a call is received, that it gets out. And so we should not forget about the 911 centers. So thank you, and thank you, General Sunday, for visiting Carlisle.
Okay, does anyone have any questions with regard to the Safe2Say program?
The Safe to Say program is open for anyone with a tip, right? But what percentage are they from schools? Is it a third? Is it a half? 2/3? Can you give me a sense of that?
I would say probably 90% of our tips are actually from our school students who are submitting tips about situations in the school or even situations at home, something going on at home that they don't feel comfortable going to anybody specific about. We do get tips that are on situations at home in which we do get police involved or must, submit a child line for those students who have something that they're experiencing in their own home.
I know every case is different, but when you get a call, do you then call the school and call the local police, or how does that work?
Sure. So whenever we get the initial tip, it always goes to the school first. The reason it does is we want to confirm that that student actually attends that school, and then the school was able to provide us with any information regarding the student's contact. So parent information, cell phone numbers, address, where they stay, if they're with mom on weekends or with dad during the week. They typically have that information that we need. And then sometimes they'll provide an extra piece of information for us that will say, we're already aware this is happening, or we've already addressed this in school. So that's where we work together on the initial intake of the tip. If it does escalate to a situation where we have to have law enforcement respond, we're getting that information on the student's address and contact, parental contact, to law enforcement immediately. It's a click of a button. All of our 911 centers actually have access to the program and can go in and access that information as it's being typed in. So we send it over to them, and then they're the ones who are dispatching the appropriate law enforcement agency.
Lastly, it's statewide, right? 67 counties?
Yes, it's statewide.
Are there some areas that are more problematic than others?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say pretty much across the state, we're seeing an abundance of tips. Obviously, in our more populated areas, we do see heavier volumes of tips, and in northern Pennsylvania, obviously less populated, we see a lower percentage. But we're seeing tips from pretty much every corner of the state, which is great because we know that they're using it and they're training all their students on how to use the program. And I'd like to note, it's not just public schools, it's all schools. So any school entity can use the program, and that even goes as far as cyber schools. It makes it a little more challenging, but we work with our cyber schools to get an address for that student and get the appropriate law enforcement agency to their residence.
I know you can't discuss specific cases, but we've had a couple in Lancaster County where there have been parents that have been fairly critical of schools for feeling that they didn't do enough after a Safe2Say report came in or something went unreported. Can you address just the training that goes on to try to get people, up to speed on this type of stuff? Because I think some people are wondering what's that training entail, and then how does your office follow up on, making sure that people are there's some accountability there?
Sure. So as far as the training goes from our end, we are only training on the use of the system. So we provide the school team with the responsibility of using the system and how to access the system and what to do when we're working through an actual tip. As far as the investigation into the content of the tip, that is completely on whatever the school's protocols or policies currently are. We don't give them any type of policies or guidance on how to investigate that tip. We don't, and that's been from the beginning, we don't tell them how to do what they do. We're just strictly responsible for the actual training of the program. And as far as accountability, we do ask the schools to disposition their tips in our system, but we don't have any authority over the disposition of tips. It helps us if schools are dispositioning their tips and providing us with that information, but we actually don't have any authority over the dispositioning of tips. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Great job. All right, thank you everyone for attending today. I appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.